Welcome to episode 11 of Just Some Points. I'm happy to have Melissa and Tammy again. I'm looking forward to hearing great news or interesting stories again. But today, I'll get started today. And while I was looking over to talk about new, I realized that I have to go back to last week because a lot of things have happened since last week. Last week, we talked about, if you remember, about the fact about the impact on brands and how they react to all the hate speech and the Black Lives Matters. And we specifically pointed out Facebook that we felt are really not reacting to it the right way. And you know, the last week they keep staying true to themselves, and even all the way back. You know, I was reading up on it. Go back to the Cambridge Analytics issue that was, that they had a couple of years ago with the data issues. They're always running behind it instead of getting in front of it, and it's the same here. Now, what is interesting, what's happened in the last week that really got momentum is the hashtag Stop Hate for Profit movement. And as of, I think, yesterday, there were 240 major brands that joined that and pulled the advertising dollars from, especially Facebook. Unilever, for example, they pulled $46 million a year from Facebook. Verizon, $22 million. I have here a few. Target, Mars, Volkswagen, Colgate, Palmolive, Adidas, HP, Clorox, Microsoft. You know, those are huge brands. And like every day, Starbucks, you know, every day they're adding more. And still, Facebook, they just claim what they have done, which is obviously not enough. And instead of reacting to it, I really think at the moment, you know, they're still worth so much money, and they obviously don't go away. But I do believe this is an example where hashtag Zuckerberg does actually really put damage on the brand. And I don't think this is what they're doing. They have a pattern now for years. And I think more and more they have this stench on the brand of just not doing the right thing. And it would be very difficult for them to really show that they really want to change. And I'm anxious to see where this is going. One thing that I actually like, there are a few brands like Starbucks that said, okay, we pull the ad dollars right now, but we take the moment and use it as an opportunity to step back and come up with new guidelines how we actually how we want to spend our dollars in the future. And that is actually even better and more valuable that companies take the time at the moment and we take that step. So I think this will not be the last time we will talk about this, because I think it seems that there is a movement right now. What's good for the brands too is they have the strength of the group.
Right.
But before it was kind of, can I afford to pull my dollars? But now, literally everybody is pulling the dollars, so they strengthen that, and it's less threatening. So it's much more powerful.
Yeah. I also think it's pretty cool that actually Facebook employees, I think it was last week, did a virtual walkout trying to get Mark's attention. So I think that's pretty cool that not only speaks about how much this is affecting everybody, even Facebook employees aren't standing behind what he's doing. So yeah. I think that's pretty awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Melissa.
I was just going to say, you kind of hit the nail on the head when you're talking about how they're just not doing enough necessarily. Because one of the things I was going to bring up was 2 or 3 days ago, Facebook announced their new initiative to prioritize what they call original news reporting, meaning that they're going to prioritize original stories with transparent authorship in the news feeds, rather than from publishers that are not necessarily transparent about who's writing the article and things like that. And I mean, and that's a step in the right direction in terms of the organic content. But right now that's not what everybody is looking for. They're looking for more, policies on their advertising and, just overall better guidelines and policies. And they're not hitting the mark.
Yeah,
At all.
I completely agree with you. And I more and more, I really blame Zuckerberg for that. And he is a good example of it's over his head. He is not the person they need at this point of time as the head figure for their company. He has, I think, a voting majority, so nobody can vote him out. But it's an example where he should, I think, step a little bit back and let other people actually do the right thing. So we'll see how that goes. I have one other thing, but I'll touch on that later. Why don't we move on? And Melissa, since you talked, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you found this week?
Sure. So I spent a lot of time looking into Facebook. Kind of sparked it a couple of days ago, and I started looking into two really big things that users are kind of concerned about right now. One being the content that they're being fed, and the other being the data that is being, tracked about them. And this past week, there have actually been really big announcements on both the content end and the data end. I already touched on the Facebook thing, but another really big announcement that happened at the end of last week after our last video session, Google announced a new initiative to support the news industry with a new licensing program. So Google is actually going to start paying publishers for high quality, high transparent content, and they're going to be placing it on what they call a new news experience for users.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and it's coming out, they said late 2020. So this is actually going to be a pretty fast turnaround in terms of a new Google platform, or I guess experience that we're going to be seeing. And I think it's really exciting. The idea behind it is they want to help publishers monetize their content, and they want to enhance the storytelling experience. They want to allow users to dive really, really deep into one specific topic, get a variety of resources instead of just, one or two big headlines, so that users can really, truly get a full spectrum view of the news that they're receiving.
Wow, I need to see if that was like the good old journalism again, where journalism, a journalist had time and were incented and got the money to research a topic and dive into it and write good content. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and this is a global initiative, so they're going to be getting global publishers from around the world right off the bat. It's not going to be like a slow release or a soft launch of any kind. They're just right from the beginning going to have content from all over the world. And the other last part of it that I was reading up on was actually really interesting, because it really helps the user as well, not just the publishers. But Google said that they will also offer to pay for the free access to avoid any paywalls for art, like New York Times, for example.
Oh, so to get this right, so are you saying they would take on the fee that users would otherwise would have to pay? That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what they want to do, basically, they want to become the go-to place. They basically say it is worth for us to pay for that if you, in return, basically consume this content coming through us.
Yes, I think there's a really big opportunity here to increase Google's display ad network. So I think that's probably a really big part of it, is that this is going to open up opportunity for Google to get their display ads up on more websites and more ad placements overall. So I think it's, really interesting from a user perspective, because I'm excited to see it, and as a digital marketer, because I wonder what kind of opportunities this is going to open up for everybody.
And I'm wondering how much of the Google spend or Facebook ad spends are going to be moved more over to Google, because if they're making sure this is actual amazing content.
Yep.
Right, but also being in this business for a long time, and being a little cynical about things like that, while I think, it makes me excited, but I right away I think about, okay, what do they want? What do they really want to get out of this? And, they are thinking about probably consolidating, more data sets from the different publishers that they probably want to have access to, but then also further drive the monopoly of the information, just being the information hub. And also, it's great. Sounds great, but it's just, we should stay on that story too.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
It does. And also, what opportunities there are for, let's say, not publishing company content publishers. If you're not a publishing company per se, but you do create good content, how does that impact you? Or what's the opportunity there?
Exactly.
Do you have opinion
about it? I think overall, this will eventually branch out to more than just publisher companies, and I do think that this is going to help benefit the smaller, businesses that are trying to produce content out there. I don't know if it's going to be necessarily like an immediate impact like it will on the bigger publishers, but I think in the long term it will be.
Interesting. Very good. Interesting story. Melissa.
I think it's funny too that they're launching it during an election year, because I think they could really pick up some amazing traffic.
Yeah, it always seems. It always seems that people care about what content they're seeing during the election cycles. Like 2 years from now, they're not necessarily going to be on the front mind of things about what am I reading and the quality that they're reading. But every time the election rolls around, it definitely becomes a hot topic.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that they probably in a race for the election, that they probably want to get this up and running very quickly. So interesting story, Melissa. So, Amy, what do you have?
I actually emailed, and my email was the same subject that you brought up, was over the Facebook people leaving, the companies leaving. So we're on the same page. But actually, Thomas, it's 400 companies, major companies have left today. I just looked at the numbers, and they're also saying that so far they have lost $60 billion in revenue. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And I think
that's insane.
There have been also really big announcements this past week about data collection as well. I don't know if you guys are big Apple fans, but they released the specs of iOS 14, and they hit really hard on privacy features. And one of the biggest privacy features that Apple is going to offer with iOS 14 is that users can choose to opt out of app tracking. So I have a feeling that, a lot of companies might actually start seeing some decrease in their data as well, because, people are going to start being smarter about what kind of data is being collected, what kind of pixels are tracking them. And they're going to start choosing to opt out of certain apps tracking every move for them.
Right. That's exciting news too, to hear. And I know it was always a big differentiator or communicated differentiator for Apple, how they do it. But you just hit on something. I actually triggered something I've been working on maybe a year ago, and that is I helped the company, potential startup, on creating a platform where that enables people to be owner of their own data and then decide if they want to give it away and sell the data. And ultimately, I think that's where we have to get to in the next whatever years. It will not happen short term, but people might say I'm delusional, or it's fantasy world, but I do believe that eventually we will get to the point where people have control over their own data, and companies that want to have access to those data, there will be a mechanism that brings those together, so that if somebody is doing research and needs, let's say, blood pressure data from men 50 to 58, they can put that request out, and people can say, I'm willing to give that data out anonymized and get some money for that. And I think that's the right model in the future to reach privacy and address the privacy issues, but also have people benefit from the data they collect or they create, and other people or companies need that. I think that's where we have to get to.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't it just last year, wasn't it in March of 2019 that Facebook went under the gun again over the data privacy issues?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was last year. So where people weren't realizing all the rights they were given or the rights they were turning over with their data. Yeah. So that's a very interesting thing. Makes you wonder what privacy rules and laws or what we've agreed to in the past, not even having a clue.
Yep.
Right.
Like Thomas said, Apple's always been a leader, and I think that this
is
definitely a step in the right direction. And I think that other companies are going to start, taking lead on this as well. Like Google also announced recently that they're going to allow users to auto delete their data too.
Right.
So it's a chain reaction that's finally getting started, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I have one last thing very quick. It's also a little bit of an update of something we talked, I think, 2 months ago. And that is TikTok. Finally, we not just talked about, but also Unreal's their global platform for marketers for advertising. And it's on first sight, it looks actually pretty interesting and good. What I thought is really cool, they have a platform for oh my God, I'm missing now the words. Virtual reality, very augmented reality. That's was the word I was looking for. Where you can actually incorporate your advertising in augmented reality fashion. What that means in detail, I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna look at it.
Me too.
And so I'm with their momentum at the moment, it's certainly something that people like us, agencies and companies, should look into that. So I think as every week, it's always interesting. Let's see what we'll find until next week. I hope it was interesting for anybody that was watching it, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.